Hello everyone, I'm back with part 2 of my Cast on Crit Vortex character. It's gone through a lot of changes, so I will let you know what they are. Right now I'm level 94. Auras, I'm using Discipline, Assassin's Mark, Elemental Weakness, and Vitality. So I'll do a Minotaur map and talk a little bit about the build, and at the end I'm going to go pretty in depth on all the gear and what changes I've made and what makes the build strong and weak and whatnot. So, hmm, just do not do a mod. Sometimes I like to do like double beyond or beyond. And this is a temp chains map, so it's pretty annoying to play. Especially with, I don't have any stun immunity on my build right now. I took out Kiara's. I absolutely hated that flask, to be honest. The duration and the charges on it were just completely horrible. And as long as you move fast, you don't really need stun immunity, but if on a temp change map or something like that, you might not be fast enough to kill the monsters before you get hit. Did I miss some? No. I'm also not using Vol Haste in the build anymore. Would be nice, but I need a lot of decks just to run a decent level of Vol Haste, and it didn't really seem worth it to me. Lately I've been running a lot of tier 16s, and you can make pretty good profit if you do this. I've got my Atlas up to 121 out of 125, and that's definitely really useful for getting map drops the higher you go. Alright, so I set up a portal, put in conk effect, run over. What are these guys doing here? What? So many sea witches and stuff. Oh my gosh, okay. Ignite, hit them. Pop your Vol Discipline. Hit them some more. And there you go. My damage right now is okay. I could get it a lot higher with an additional curse amulet, and I'll talk about that right now. So, right now my Vortex tooltip is 42k with conk effect, 26.8 without conk effect, and I'm missing a golem. I would use a flame golem right now, and that'll give me an extra about 1k DPS. And to do that, since I don't have any mana, I would cast it with cast when damage taken, a mortal call, and then I would need a third red here for flame golem. So yeah, I'll talk about all the gear right now. So using a Vagan dagger, multi-modded. I got one with hybrid spell damage, but I think if you got one with lightning damage to attacks, it might be better because you're gonna need it on your amulet to proc elemental equilibrium. And if you're going for a +1 curse amulet, it might be easier to get a lightning damage on your dagger, so you don't have to have that mod on an amulet. Okay, so using a Vagan dagger, you get spell damage, crit attack speed, all that. Pretty simple. I have Vol Discipline, increased duration, and another Vol Discipline in here. And if I were to fight Shaper or a really hard tier 16, I would also put in a third Vol Discipline or something if I could. Next, the helmet. I'm using a Hubris with a Vortex damage enchant. It's okay. It adds about 1k DPS. Can I tell here? Let's see. It adds about 1.2k DPS. And it should double dip. But ultimately, I think a Ellie weakness enchant or flammability enchant would be better. I picked one up and rolled a decent one a couple days ago, and I will swap this in if I can use my third curse, the flammability, but I need a +1 curse amulet to do that. But ultimately, my damage is pretty good. I can clear the tier 16s pretty fast. So Hubris with ES and some resist. You don't need fire resist at all, or I don't. The amulet you want, so the attributes aren't really nice, especially for like vitality, which you don't really have to use, but it costs a butt ton of strength if you do use it. But the one essential mod is the lightning damage to attacks, because you need that for proccing elemental equilibrium, and without elemental equilibrium, you do 0 damage, or might as well. You can also use Orbistorms to proc it, but that's kind of. I guess you could do Orbistorms to proc it. That wouldn't be that bad. But then, yeah, you need to do that for every boss. Kind of annoying. So yeah, I think you definitely want lightning damage to attacks for sure. And then I'm using a Chevron's Revelation ring for the regen. That's it. I'm using a Pyre to convert all the Vortex initial hit to fire, so I can scale it and the ignite. I'm using a Lacered Spirit Shield with high spell damage and decent ES, and all the spell damage double dips. For the ignite, it scales the ignite on Vortex. Boots. I got lucky to roll these insane boots. So you probably can't get something like this, but maybe 1 resist or 2 resist would be good. And if you can, I would get a 80% chance to avoid being stunned if you've killed recently mod, or the 2% life and mana regen is also really good. Belt, I'm using a crystal belt, and what you want on a belt is like strength, flat ES, and a resist. And if you can, get like reduced flash charge or something that's really good. Using Voidbringer gloves, I got lucky and got a +1 vol on it, but it's not really necessary. All I really do is boost my discipline by 1. Not really useful. And a Chevrons. So Chevrons is pretty necessary, I would say. Gives you the 30% more damage from pain attunement, and is overall really good. So the links are, start from the bottom: shield charge, increased area, vortex, increased crit strikes, controlled destruction, and cast on crit. So recently I added control destruction. I took out fire penetration. Um, I didn't think I'd have enough crit with it, but I actually do. I have with full power charges on my shield charge and Vortex. It's only 40% right now, but with max power charges, it comes out to be close to, and Diamond Flask, my Vortex comes out to be like 93% chance to crit, and the shield charge is like 90 or 85 or something like that. Anyways, it's enough with controlled destruction, and so that's another more multiplier. And thing about more multipliers is they start stacking up. Like the more you stack them, the more effective they become. So yeah, you just keep stacking them where you can. Cast on crit and controlled destruction each become more effective with the more multipliers you add. So yeah, that's the gear. My flash choices is Dying Sun, super awesome for AoE. Roomies, oh my god, how could you ever play a character without roomies? With the flash nodes, my block goes from 24 to 56 and 18. And you could get a better rolled one too, so you could get like over 60% block or something, which is like completely ridiculous from a flask. And you also get the 3000 armor from the granite base. Diamond flasks, absurdly good. Silver flask, not 100% necessary, but it's pretty nice for clearing maps. If you were to do like tier 16s or something and you're playing hardcore or something, then I would probably take out both of these flasks and I would use a Stibnite 100% and then use like a Basalt or something like that probably. And then you'd be like really tanky. Or maybe the flask that gives you regen. The like regen to ES. I'm not really sure what it's called. But yeah. So that's the gear. Saw the tooltip. It goes up to about 65, 62k, I think, with full power charges and conk effect. And if I were to use Righteous Fire, it goes up to like 90k. But that's another thing I'll say. So Righteous Fire. So a lot of the skill tree changes I've done have been dropping regen. Like I dropped this regen. I dropped this regen here. And I'm not really bothering with these nodes here because I used Righteous Fire and I really didn't like it. My damage was fine enough without it, and it just seemed like if you get hit with like projectiles or something, or you just end up fighting bosses for more than a couple seconds, then like you just basically just die because you've like barely enough regen to keep Righteous Fire active, and then overall it just doesn't really seem worth it. And especially because like 90% of the tier 16 map mods are going to have at least one mod that's either like way less regen or no regen or minus max. So I like found almost no scenario where I could use Righteous Fire. Okay, so skill tree changes. So go up through here, crit, all this is the same. I took out these three nodes. This is all the same. We get energy from within here. I took the flash nodes, they're really good. And I went up here, I took all these fire damage nodes. They are okay. It's pretty good damage. It's like something like 70 something percent fire damage. And I took out these crit nodes. I actually didn't think I'd be able to, but yeah, it was actually no problem. And I'm still at like 93% chance to crit. So I lost tooltip DPS here essentially. Like switching these points in for these basically didn't increase my tooltip very much at all, but it increased my overall damage because the tooltip doesn't take into account things like Diamond Flask and Assassin's Mark, stuff like that. So it actually is a higher damage. Then went over here, I took these nodes. I think I had them last time, but yeah, they're really good. And then I did a little bit of stuff here. I took out this node. I put one node here, and then I took the rest of these points for this jewel. So essentially it's a 2-point jewel if you minus this. 2 points and minus 10 spell damage. So overall I thought it was pretty good. And that also boosted my DPS too. I'll talk a bit about Trickster, I guess. So almost everything on the Trickster passive is really nice. So you get damage over time, attack speed. You get damage over time. You get energy shield recovery, which is really nice. You get like a lot when you're mapping, even with minimal regen on your gear. This gives attack, energy shield, dodge and stuff. Faster start of energy shield recharge, which is super nice because if you're fighting bosses and stuff like the Chimera, I pretty much start my energy shield starts regenning like while he's attacking me because he only gets in a hit every second or a couple seconds. And then you get ridiculous energy shield from Shade Form and also more evasion too, so you can get your energy shield starting faster. So these units kind of synergize. Then this also you get sick movement speed. Sick attack speed, which is like movement speed. And then your move skills cost no mana, so I reserve like all my mana. And by the way, if I were to get a +1 curse amulet, I would drop for vitality and I would put in flammability. And that'd give me like a huge amount of damage. See if there's anything else. Okay, so I'll talk about pros and cons of the build. So pros of the build are really high damage. You can kill bosses like super fast, especially like the tier 16s. Like so many characters just get to tier 16s and they just get absolutely wrecked. Like even with another really nice character I made, like Low Life Spectral Throw, my damage against tier 16s is a lot less than this guy. And the overall investment for me to get the damage that this guy has is like way higher. So it has really high single target damage. That's the biggest pro. The other pros are the slow field from the Vortex itself. It's basically everything around you is chilled, so it's like almost like a temp change or something like that, Has really good AoE, especially with this Dying Sun Flask. The cast on crit more multiplier on it now is like super good. So it makes it probably better than the self cast. So it's like, or at least similar to self cast. You lose 1 gem and you gain like a more multiplier because there's no real more multipliers you can put in here. So it's pretty good. Synergizes pretty well with cast on crit. Synergizes pretty well altogether. The cons are I don't have any stun immunity. Things like titty bitches, a big old pack of titty bitches. Like you have to be really careful because you might get stunned, or you're definitely gonna get stunned. You might just get stun locked and die. So, freeze even if you mess up your flask and you don't have freeze immunity, like log out because you're gonna just get chain frozen and die. The whirling speed or the speed on shield charge is like bad. Essentially, compared to other characters, is just bad. I have 53%, and with when I use a movement skill, it goes to 75. But I also scale it with move speed on my boots, flasks, so it's not like the worst thing ever. But compared to like Volspark or OP builds of the past, it's bad. And the other thing is that cast on crit cooldown. Having it be 0.5 seconds is just like bad for like if you don't want to move really fast, you want to have like this crazy build, that just runs through maps. Like you can't really do that because if you start scaling attack speed too much, then your cast on crit can't keep up. and you'll just not hit packs. And lastly, I'll talk about if I were to make potential changes or upgrades to the build. So the first huge upgrade would be a +1 curse amulet. I saw an amulet online yesterday that was essentially the exact same as mine, except it didn't have multi, and it had +1 curse. So I would lose like, I can't take this off or all my gear will pop off, but um, so essentially you lose like 30 multi or something like that, and you gain like -50 fire resist. So like the damage upgrade would be huge, but it's up to you if you need it. Another thing would be to use a bow like this, kind of. Anyways, so you get like a 6-link bow, crude bow, and you color it. I think you'd probably want to have like 4 blue and 2 red or something. I just got this. I might play around with it a bit. I don't know. Um, you could like, but you could put in empower, and you could put in +2 cold gems, and you could get up to like a level 26 or 27 vortex, and that would be like pretty huge damage. And the other option with that, which would be ridiculous, but if you really want to do it, go ahead. You could put a cast on death setup. Cast on death has like a 300% more spell damage multiplier, so you could just like walk at like Shaper and just die. You just one shot him. Like I guarantee that you'd one shot him. It would be so much damage. But I don't know, it's kind of troll, not necessary. And then the other options I would consider would be using like a Cosprees instead of a Vagan Dagger. I'm not really sure how well that'd work. I'm sure it'd work fine. But use like a Cosprees, and then you probably put something like Ice Nova or like another Vortex or something. I have honestly no idea. You put some sort of thing in your Cosprees, and then you use that for AoE clearing, and then you use your chest for single target. Because then you don't have to worry about whirling around the map too fast and only casting Vortex every half second. And then the last option that I would consider doing on the build would be taking out Voidbringer. You'd probably have to take the crit passives, but then you'd put in Insanity Gloves and use Cyclone. And what that would do is basically it would solve your stun problems. So that might be better on something like hardcore. And then you could also use Fortify on your Whirling Blades or your Shield Charge. And I don't know, it would have worse clear speed, but it would be like a little bit safer. So, man, it's not really for me, but something you could consider. That's it. That's all the changes to the build, I think. I'll post it on the forums and update all my shit because I know it's like super unupdated. And I also saw an Elementalist version of this. You can check that out. It looks really good. It has the only thing I would say on it is it has way less ES. So I think this build's better, but you can do whatever you want. You can check out other options and see what works best for you. Thanks for watching. Bye.